I'm Woodwork Curt, and on this video, we're going to be making the coolest set of cornhole boards you've ever seen. Let's go.
Alright guys, thanks for watching another video, so here we go. I'm going to start by cutting up the plywood that I need for my faces. Pretty simple with this Craig track saw jig. I'm using maple plywood. In my opinion, it's the best for this application. It's cabinet grade, so it should finish up real nicely. The CNC machine's been getting a lot of use since I upgraded the size of it. At first, I couldn't decide what logo to put in the center of the cornhole board, but then I was sitting there and I was like, holy shit, why don't you just put in your own logo? So that's what I'm doing. After it's out of the CNC machine, I cut the tabs around the holes and pull the waste out. Then I take a router and round over the edges so the bags don't get snagged on them. Can't be ripping my bags now. I'll put a link in the description for the website that I use for this volume calculator. It came in a lot of handy because epoxy is really expensive and you don't want to waste this stuff. Plus, the less you have to sand off, the better. After I get the black done, I let that dry, and then off camera I ran around and sanded all the edges just to kind of test and make sure that I wasn't going to sand through the maple veneer. Then I go ahead and start pouring. If you haven't figured out, purple is probably one of my favorite colors. Sanding this thing was an absolute pain. At first I started with an orbital, but I quickly realized that that wasn't going to get me anywhere. So I busted out my belt sander, and I was really nervous because once again, I did not want to sand through the maple veneer, and it's pretty easy with these things, so I hear. But it ended up going okay, and I only sanded through one tiny little spot. Point out in the comments if you can see where I did it. Since the epoxy was good and dry, I went ahead and started cutting up the pieces I needed to make the box for the boards to fit on. You could easily use 2x4s, but when I went to the store, I couldn't believe the state that the 2x4s were in. They were warped, twisted, any kind of word you wanted to use for them. But the 2x6s that were sitting there looked like they were a fresh palette. I just went with them. Obviously, you don't need a planer or a joiner to build a cornhole board. But since I do, I'm going to make these boards so straight and flat that everything fits together perfectly. I had to wait until I got the thickness of the top and bottom pieces before I could cut the rails that would act as the sides of the frame. I built it like this so I could have a full 24 inches, the width of a cornhole board, for the top piece for my built-in scoreboard. Shop tools in general can be very loud, but table saws are amongst the most. Be sure to wear hearing protection.
You should take your own advice.
After I'm done taking my own advice, I decide to bring my gun range headphones to the shop, because I'm tired of my ears ringing at the end of the day. There's numerous ways that you can connect all these boards together, but like I've said in previous videos, pocket holes are my favorite and I believe they will work perfectly for this application. You will never see any of the screws, and that's honestly my #1 priority here, other than keeping the boards together of course. So I'll make all my marks across all the boards, so each pocket hole is spaced out evenly and will look good if anyone ever decided to flip the board over.
It's me, Woodwork Curt. I realize as I'm sitting here editing that I have a giant chunk of time go by where I'm not saying anything, and I realize that this is normally where a sponsorship would go. I'm still a growing channel, so I don't have sponsorships yet. But like, share, subscribe, get me to that sponsorship, baby. Let's get back to this video.
Once I get all the pocket holes drilled out, I take the top 2 pieces to the CNC room so I can cut the built-in scoreboard system that I've used on countless cornhole boards. I've seen the scoreboards that are separate. That just means you have to carry one more thing to the park or the beach or wherever you're trying to play this game at. I could have just left them carved out and it really wouldn't have made that big of a difference. But I had to use up this little bit of epoxy that was left over, so I decided to fill in all the numbers with black epoxy just to make them pop that much more. After the epoxy's dry, I just want to barely take any off when I'm sending it through the planer. Just enough to take the epoxy off. Now on to the assembly. This could have been way easier if I had bigger clamps, but I didn't, so I had to rely on my own strength. But it didn't turn out that bad, but I'm totally buying clamps for the next one. After using my trusty mini mallet, I got all the pieces banged together, right where they need to be. This project's coming together so good, I can't wait to the end. And just like I did for the inner rings, I realized the edge is kind of sharp, so I took my router bit and went over all 4 sides of both boards. Now onto the legs. I found the center of each leg and then I measured down about 1.5 inches, and that's where I'm going to drill my hole. Once I get all the holes drilled, I go over to the bandsaw and roughly cut out the shape that I need. And then I take them to the stationary belt sander to get the final profile and a smooth round over for all the legs. The finish line is in sight, I can see it now. I'm just drilling out the holes for the bolts that'll go through to hold the legs on. I have about a 1-inch spacer from the top of the leg to the bottom of the top piece to ensure nothing will rub together once I tighten everything down. This is actually a pretty handy trick that I've learned off watching countless hours of YouTube myself, and it comes in handy because for a career I'm a professional painter and I have a bunch of paint cans lying around. But if you set the frame of the cornhole board on top of the paint can, it makes it perfectly 12 inches. I get the leg right where I need it off the side of the table and mark it, then transfer that to the rest of the legs in the set. After I dry fit everything, I take it apart and put it in the spray booth and spray away. I'm using a water-based spar urethane. I ended up putting on 3 coats, I just didn't film it all because it was kind of redundant. I sanded with 220 in between each coat and it came out looking like glass.
Alright guys, so this is probably one of the funnest projects I've built so far. You guys know the drill. Like, subscribe, most importantly, enjoy my content. Thanks for watching.